Hello and welcome to my video all about how to do the Pfb and Pfbf increase techniques. The Pfb is the Purl equivalent of the kfb, which is an increase technique I've shown in a previous video. Pfbs are single increases, which means that a Pfb will increase the number of stitches on your needles by 1 stitch. The Pfb stands for purl in the front and the back, where the front and the back refer to the top stitch on the left hand needle. Here I'm just knitting a stockinette stitch, so I'm alternating between knit and purl rows. I'm just on a purl row now, and all you have to do is purl up to the place where you want to do the increase. And then you put your right hand needle into the top stitch on the left hand needle and do all the usual stages of a regular purl stitch. So you go down through the stitch at the front, wrap the yarn and go around to the back. However, at this point you stop because you don't want to push the stitch off the top of the needle to complete the purl stitch. Instead, you want to purl into the back of the stitch. Now, purling into the back of the stitch involves taking your right hand needle up through the stitch like so. If I just flip my work over, you can see this better. And you go up through that stitch and cross to the front. You then carry on like you would in a regular purl stitch by wrapping the yarn and completing that stitch and pushing the stitch off the top of the needle. And here you can see you now have 2 stitches on the right hand needle when you only started with 1 on the left hand needle, therefore giving you an increase of 1, which is a single increase. So a Pfb is a single increase. I'm now going to do a purl stitch before showing you the Pfb once again. So you take your right hand needle and go down through the top stitch on the left needle like you would in a regular purl stitch. And you do all the regular purl stitch stages until the last bit where instead of pushing the stitch off the top of the needle, you then purl up through the stitch at the back. This is called purling into the back of the loop. So you go up through that stitch and then do the usual steps of a purl stitch to complete it. Neither the Pfb or the Pfbf are invisible increases. Instead, they're quite visible. And as you can see here, there is a kind of horizontal bar of yarn that shows where you have done that increase. So usually this kind of increase isn't done, for instance, in the middle of a large area of stockinette because it would just stand out too much. It's too visible. This is why you'll often see this increase technique referred to as a bar increase. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the Pfbf increase. This stands for purling in the front, the back and then the front of the loop again. And it's a double increase, which means the number of stitches on your needles goes up by 2. So to do a Pfbf, you purl up to the point where you want to do the increase. And then you use your right hand needle to go down through the stitch on the left hand needle and do all the usual stages of a purl stitch. Except when you get to the point where you would normally push the stitch off the top of the needle, you stop and instead you then purl into the back of that stitch. So if I turn the work over, you can see better, and I take my right hand needle up through that top stitch and cross in front. Then I carry on doing the usual stages of a purl stitch again. And again I'm going to stop just before I push the stitch off the top of the needle. The very last stage is then to do a normal purl stitch. So you then take your right hand needle and go down through the front of that stitch once again, wrap the yarn and then complete that stitch. So this section is just a normal purl stitch. And this will result in you having 3 stitches on your right hand needle when you only started with 1 on the left needle, therefore increasing by 2. So there we go. That's how you do a Pfb and a Pfbf increase. I'm now going to move on to show you an alternative way of doing the Pfb. This is a good idea to try if you're finding the PFB I've just shown you a little bit awkward. Basically, you're just reversing the steps. So instead of going into the front of the stitch first, you go into the back first and then the front. So really it's a PBF rather than a PFB. It differs a little bit in appearance, but only in a very minor way. So it all depends what you find more comfortable and what you like the look of best. So to do this alternative PFB, which is a PBF, then you go into the back of the loop first, which means if I just turn my work over here, you take your right hand needle up through the top stitch at the back of the left hand needle and cross in front before then completing the normal steps of a purl stitch by wrapping your yarn and taking your needle to the back, but instead of then pushing the stitch off the top, you then complete a normal purl stitch by swinging the right hand needle around to the front and going down through the front of that stitch on the left hand needle. And then the rest is just a normal purl stitch, and you complete it by pushing the stitch off the top of the needle. That's just the alternative way of doing it, by purling into the back of the loop and then the front rather than the other way around. I hope that's been helpful, and thank you very much for watching.